the first question, shifting back to Jon, pre-FRD, so before Front Row Dads, how would that Jon have responded to this question? What do you do?
Mm. Yeah, prior to Front Row Dads, the answer would have been, yeah, I'm a speaker and I run a charity called Front Row Foundation. So that would have been the few words intro. I would have probably tossed in there, ran a couple ultra marathons. Towards the end of it, I might have mentioned that I had a wife and kids.
Yep, yep, totally. Beautiful. Okay. And then shifting to today, this moment, what do you do, Jon Vroman?
Yeah, today, when I'm in my conscious mind and in my conscious heart, it would be I'm a father and husband. Tatiana and I have been together for 18 years, two boys, 15 and 10, living in Austin. And then, when I'm not showing up at home in my best in the best way possible that I can, I'm leading a group of men in a community called Front Row Dads. And these guys are high performers, achievers, people that want to do well in life, at home and in business. And so we gather, we have real conversations. We've always said the kind of conversations that don't typically happen at a backyard barbecue. And through the depth of those authentic dialogues, we help men and their families for generations to come to heal and to grow together.
Yes. I have nothing to add to that because it's short and perfect.
Mm,
Next question. Yeah, next question, brother. Back to Jon, again, pre-FRD. What did he value most and prioritize?
I valued achievement, progress, significance. My heart was in a good place, wanting to do good in the world, wanting to show my kids how to go after your dreams. The primary mission was figure out what lights you up and then go do it. There was this old quote, and I think it was Howard something who said, I forget the name now. He said, "Don't ask what the world needs, but ask what makes you come alive, and go do that, because what the world needs are people who have come alive."
Yeah.
And I lived by that. It was in a deep search for what made my heart sing, what made me feel most proud of myself. And I went after that with everything I had through Front Row Foundation and the speaking and the different ways that I was attempting to be a good human in the world. And that was when you looked at my calendar, that I poured my heart and soul into that. And I'm so proud of it. I mean, it was a beautiful season and a beautiful chapter in my life. I'm grateful that I worked so hard in pursuit of those goals and made difficult decisions. But that was definitely my highest priority, was putting my head on the pillow at the end of the night and just being proud of the progress that I had made. Highly tuned to how productive I was being.
For sure. Yep, that lands. Similar story, right? And I could go on a whole cool explanation journey on that, which I'm not going to do. But what I'm more curious about is that today, how is it different? What do you value and prioritize today?
Yeah, well, I don't remember who said it, but it's been said many times that your calendar is a reflection of your priorities. That feels true to me. And I was so happy the other day when somebody was talking about my calendar and I said, "Let me show you my schedule." I did a screen share or a screenshot of my calendar, and it said, from 7 to 9 in the morning was my kids. And that's what it said kids. And then from 9 to 11, it said, MBS, mind, body, spirit. And so now, if my calendar is a reflection of my priorities, I am putting my family first. I'm leaning into that part of my life, which feels so good. That is the most positive shift. But also for me, and I think in the past, I understood the value of putting your oxygen mask on first, but I didn't really practice it at the level that was needed to sustain the intensity that I was bringing to every day. I was definitely on a course for burnout. I was affecting my health, and it was not sustainable. I was pushing hard and seeing what I was capable of, which it has value. But what happens today is a real attention to my health, physical health, going to the gym, taking hikes, which I did just an hour ago with Tatiana. I shared with you prior to recording, and silence and a chance to listen to my own heart. And I think that's what it looks like today. Much more of what's inside of Jon, what's coming through spirit, Jon's soul. What wisdom does that have? Where in contrast to the old Jon was very interested in every podcast, every book, every other opinion, which of course has value. I still love to learn. And yet I give more value to my inner compass today than I had in the past.
Yep. And I see that. I see that. I've seen it evolve in you. I've learned how to embody that myself. My quick reflection there as it relates to that form of leadership, leading yourself, is creating space for yourself. And I remember it took a lot of courage the first time, this is several years ago, where I completely unplugged from quote unquote work for myself, for my family, for an experience. I do that regularly now, as you know. It's just part of who I am and I advocate for it. But I remember the courage it took. I remember how fucking scared I was to be like, wait a second. I cannot take a week off. And it was probably actually 2 days at first and three.
Yeah.
But now, dude, to your point, there's this beauty in just designing your calendar and be like, well, there's going to be 2 hours to just play, 3 hours to explore. And the fact that literally this morning you hiked with your wife, that says it all,
Yeah.
right? Because old Jon probably wouldn't have done that. And again, not that old Jon was wrong or off course. It's just the shift in what he prioritized. Because you're absolutely right. It's like we can all share all these great thoughts, but let's check out that calendar. What's going on in there?
Yeah.
That's the source of truth in many ways.
So true. And needs constant adjustment. Even in the last 2 weeks, the pendulum in my world swings from, man, that there's a lot of space in there. What do I want to do? What do I want to create? What do I want to build? And then I come up with some great ideas and I fill my calendar with it. I'm so excited about going off and pursuing all that.
Yep.
Very quickly realized that I have gone too far and added too much. And out of excitement and joy of building, I have buried myself in commitments. And then I will swing the pendulum back and go, clear everything, just wipe it all out and let me just breathe for a minute. And there's a lesson that could be learned from that. Like, hey, maybe don't need to swing the pendulum so far. That's possible. And it could also just be that life can be a pendulum. Life can be waves. Life can be seasons. And there's a level of acceptance that, hey, rather than trying to have a perfect calendar that I'm going to figure out today and will still be the perfect calendar a year from now, I will just attune to myself and to my family and to my business and to the world around me week by week, month by month, year by year, and I will adjust as I need more space and time, as projects need more space and time, perhaps, and you will just be attuned. And that is the word that I would use, is that the old Jon had systems and ideas from other people that said, you should have 90 minutes in the morning for your morning routine. And I would hear that and go, well, successful people had 90 minutes. Let me have 90 minutes. And there's some genius in that, right? Do what other people do and you might get the same result. Great. And what is the morning routine that helps you right now in this season of your life is also a really valuable question. Sometimes it's a little shorter, might even be at times longer, but attuning to your own needs. So gathering the wisdom of others, which is what Front Row Dads is all about, hearing the ideas, testing certain things out, and then being willing to adapt and flex and flow through these ever-changing seasons. It's the same way with kids. It's the same way in your marriage. What worked yesterday isn't always going to work today,
Mm.
right? And so we need to constantly be in that game. So what my calendar also looks like is not only what I just described, but it is a fluid, changing, ever-evolving piece of art that will always be that way.
Yes. Yep. I align with that. It's so real. It's so real. And to highlight some of the words you use, the acceptance, the attunement, the flow, the seasons, because for me, that's staying open to what wants to happen instead of like, well, no, now I just do this and this is a schedule. Like that is a way to be, but it has its own it has its own neglectance of like what wants to happen because for me and especially as it relates to my journey with Front Row Dad, there are certainly seasons. We were talking about that before we jumped on. I'm like, I've been dancing with new challenges and accepting that that's where I need to be. Not like, oh, I'm past this. No, this is where I am and it's perfect. Dude, awesome. All right. I think one more big question. Again, zooming back out, I guess 9 years. I'm trying to also give some gravity to just the beautiful journey. Like 9 years ago, how would that version of Jon define his role as a father?
Hmm. I think early on, I would have told you certain things with my words that would have been true.
Mm.
Like that, how I would have defined fatherhood. I said some things that I would stand by today. Like
Mm.
I remember having a conversation with Dave Powders, one of our guys, and it was very early on. And I said, my philosophy is going to be flexible and engaged. Flexible and engaged. And even to this day, I would stand by that principle and that philosophy. And I was trying to be flexible and engaged. I would have said that, family is very important to me and it's time to show up. And I would have claimed a lot of the things that I still believe today.
Hmm.
And what what we talked about and what was still true is that I was willing to push so hard,
Mm.
that fatherhood meant sacrifice. Fatherhood meant like burning the candle at both ends. That there was an unspoken belief because that's what I was, in some ways, that's what I was doing.
Sure.
And and I was doing my absolute best with what I could, for sure. But it's not just the things I said about fatherhood, it was the things I know I believed.
Mm.
And, I would, for example, wake up and I would say to my wife, I need to go to the coffee shop right away because my best working hours are in the morning and I need to provide for our family and I need to get to the coffee shop by 7 because I couldn't be hassled by the kids in the morning, right? Or the chaos of the morning. And that was an action that I took. So that was my belief about fatherhood.
Sure.
And um, again, this is not to poke at anybody who does that. It's not to put down a man who feels like he needs to go to work to put food on the table for his family. And there were some very dicey moments early on as a new dad for me, where I had quit a very, high paying job as a W-2. And then I went out to be an entrepreneur and I left with 6 figures in the bank and very quickly found myself 6 figures in debt. And that happened. That's a real story. And so when I talk about working hard, it did feel like a matter of like, could I keep my house and put food on the table? And to me, that's what fatherhood was about and looking like at that time, much more about survival. And then over the years, you figure out a few things and it's no longer about the survival element, it's other aspects of growth. Some ways it's Maslow's hierarchy at play.
Yeah.
So my early fatherhood was like some good ideas and a lot of survival is the summary.
Mm. So before I ask you to frame what fatherhood and its role means today, I want to quickly reflect how real that is to hear again, because I know this story And I've walked a similar path. And what has shown up for me recently is this respect for the survival versus sacred dance.
That's right.
It's a whole nother conversation, but the highest level, what you describe is there are seasons where you're in the survival dance, and to
That's it.
not do it is risks a lot, and that's very real. I wanna bring that to attention because I tend to get excited talking about the sacred dance. There's a place for the sacred dance, whether it's exercise like an hour a week, where you get to do the thing that you love and it lights you up. And I feel very privileged to be able to do the sacred dance a lot with you, with other men in this community. Part of the way that we get together, we gather, we do events, it's pretty sacred to me. It doesn't feel as much survival, but there is this relationship of balancing the survival and the sacred dance. So thank you for mentioning that, because I could sense there's emotion behind that. There's deeper stories, all that beautiful journey. But now let's land into today. How would you, if it's significantly different, it might not be, but how would you define your role as a father today?
Yeah, to me now and again, different season of life. My boys are 10 and 15, but the evolution has been one of more nurturing spirit. So yeah, one was surviving, putting a roof over your head and eating food, and this one is more of nurturing the spirit of the child and the young man that I have in front of me. So how I look at fatherhood now, only, and I'm speaking about myself, so not all fathers, right? I'm not speaking about every father in every season, but my role now is very much about um, taking my boys on an adventure through a rite of passage into manhood. My wife and I have talked about this, and I credit Jon Tyson, who wrote The Intentional Father, and I had him on the podcast. He was a great guest. And he talked about how he had a conversation with his wife at some point, maybe around like 10 to 12, about his son, where he said, you know, you were the most important thing in that boy's life, especially early on. Imagine, you know, how important a mother is, from breastfeeding that child to the tender, loving care of this young boy while dad is hunting, right, to provide perhaps. And this isn't for all families, of course. I'm talking about like his explanation, right? Because obviously in today's society, men and women both go to hunt and bring home, income for the family, and roles can be, defined any way a family wants to. So this isn't a stance about one way being right or wrong. In his experience, Jon Tyson's, he went to his wife and said, "Hey, now it's really my turn. This is where I need to take our boy out with me hunting and show him, like, I'm gonna take over a little bit here and help him get to manhood." And that really hit me because I think that in our family, that's working really well. I had a conversation with Tatiana and I said, this season, right, from 10 to 20, let's call it, if the boys have two halves of their game, Tatiana was critical in 0 to 10, right? And I am super critical in 10 to 20, having my boys go out and show them how to be a man, how to take care of people, how to make money, how to, right, be a contributing, a positive masculine presence to society. So
Mm,
that is how I view things currently.
I love that.
I'm deeply involved. This is the chance that I have to really, really shine. And so I'm taking this decade very seriously.
Mm. Yes. Dude, all right. There's only one last thing, and that is, if you could give one invitation, just one for now, to all the fathers out there, Jon Vroman's invitation, what would it be? And before you answer that, I'm giving you permission to get out of the whole projection. This is your invitation. Give them what you want to give them.
Yeah.
Anything. What would you invite them into?
I want to invite them to find their crew and lean in all the way. And that's it. I firmly believe that for myself. I practice what I preach there. I value that at the highest level. I think nothing is more important for a man to have other solid, grounded, intelligent, courageous, loving, and even tender men, right? As much as they are warriors, as achievers, as goal setters, as aggressive, I want to go after life with all I have. Also the loving and tender man that can be that way for another man and in some ways give him something that maybe they never got from their dad. You know, it's in some ways our community of men is showing up for each other and giving men things they never got from their own fathers. As great as their dad might have been, or perhaps as absent as their father was, front row dads in many ways is not just about being a great father, like, hey, 6 things to do on a Saturday morning. The invitation is connect with other men because some of the deepest healing, like generational trauma that happens in a man's life, the biggest healing that happens in a man's life, which really allows them to be present with their kids, which really allows them to be present with their spouse, which really allows them to build and create with such power in the world. That healing comes from other safe, masculine, solid dudes.
Yep.
That's where it happens. A marriage is a beautiful thing, and there's a lot of growth in that. Fatherhood is a beautiful thing. There's a lot of growth in that. Business is a beautiful thing. There's a lot of growth in that. Nothing will hold a candle to the very unique gifts. And I say unique because, look, a marriage can do things for a man that a brotherhood can't. Fatherhood will do things for a man that a brotherhood can't. All right? Business will do things for the man a brotherhood can't. But there are clearly things that a brotherhood can do for a man that the business, parenting, and a marriage will never do. Things that a man will never be able to achieve on his own in isolation, sitting in his room in silence, trying to shoulder everything himself. And so my invitation is find your crew, lean in, give everything you've got, show up for other dudes, and let them show up for you. Right? Give everything you can to these chosen men in your life, and then choose to receive everything you can from these men in your life. And if you build an army of men around you, if you build a network, a tribe, a community of guys that will die for you, that will show up for your family if you die, there is no more security that you will ever have in your life. There is no amount of net worth that you'll have in the bank. There is no amount of cash flow that you'll create for your family. You can't buy enough term life insurance. You can't write enough letters or demonstrate enough values to try to compete with what happens if you have 10, 20, 30, or hundreds of men who think the world of you and would go to battle for you and would do anything they can to help you succeed. And most importantly, God forbid everything happens to you as a man, they do that for your family in your absence.
Mm.
Is the most important thing we can do is a group of men that we will go all in for.
So, dude, thank you. That's a strong, a very strong invitation, which I am 100% behind. And what I want to share, because it just came up for me, and I don't think I've ever told you this before. It's so simple and it's so aligned, is that I remember a couple years ago, I think I had just gotten back from leading one of the Colorado adventures, which is inspired by FRD. It's one of the ways that we gather, that men gather, and it's the most soul nourishing time I have. You know this, being there last year. And I'm sitting in our back patio with my family. It's like we're listening to music, we're dancing, we're just flowing, and this song comes on that my wife likes. And the song, I'm not gonna sing, but the key part of the chorus is, "You gotta find your people to find yourself."
Mm.
And dude, when I heard those lyrics, like, this euphoric feeling came over me, and I was like, "Oh," like, the clarity. You can make the argument the opposite, like, oh no, you got to figure out who you are, and then you go, find people in the world. But what you said and what I felt in that moment is that it's that when you find your people, and this is my story, then you find these real parts of yourself. It is not this solo gig. It's not this solo act. It's this tribe, this community, this brotherhood of men that allow me to be fully expressed. So powerful invitation that I also extend to anyone who's listening, because that's very real.